Hello, this is Terry Ensberg. Today's quote is from Dr. Seuss. And this mess is so big and so deep and so tall, we cannot pick it up. There is no way at all. Life is messy and quirky and unpredictable. Stuff just happens no matter how hard you try to keep a grip on everything. And life takes you in directions that you couldn't have imagined, and funny things pop up that you never would have thought would. Today, my daughter-in-law Jenny sent me a picture of of my 18-month-old granddaughter River, and what I saw was a picture, and as it came through to me, the head was cut off. I had to scroll down, and she was standing next to an unmade bed, kind of leaning over it, wearing something exactly like something I would wear. And I thought it was me. and then as I scrolled down and her head came out, it was like, oh, it's not me, it's a River. And here I thought maybe I had lost a little weight. And it was just like, how could I mistake myself for an 18-month-old? Another quirky thing that's happened to me lately is when I recently had a basal cell carcinoma taken off my ear, I was put under twilight sleep, as they call it, and I was maybe half out, but I think they thought I was more than half out. And the surgery took place with me lying on my back. That was a surprise. I thought for sure I'd be on my side because my ear make it go up, but whatever. So they did it with me on my back, and I was awake enough to hear the surgeon and the nurse laughing at me for snoring, and and I argued with them. I was awake enough to realize and instinctively, dispute that, and they sounded kind of surprised and just said, it's okay, just take a nap, it'll be okay. But like, who thinks they're gonna go into surgery and be criticized or laughed at for snoring? So the point here is that life is full of interesting twists and turns and things you never would have seen coming. So who cares, right? Well, the difference it makes to me is that I have regrets. I mean, there are things I would have done differently. And I think regret is one of those topics that people don't like because it's too late to go back and redo it, and you feel bad. And I don't feel bad. I've had a great life. I do not feel one iota of like sorry for myself or any of that. I've had an absolutely terrific life with a husband who couldn't have been better, and wonderful kids and their wives and kids, and it's been a blessing. My whole life has been a blessing. But I do think regret is something spending time thinking about, because then you can turn to the generation behind you and say, don't step in this pothole. When I did a survey, very superficial, on the internet for quotes on regret, almost all of them dealt with it in a heavy way and warning people to have no regrets. Don't think about your regrets. Forget your regrets. Just move on. Don't look that way. Pick up life and go on. Life's too short to have regrets, all that stuff. So here are my two regrets. And both of them were based on a logical fallacy. I can now see that from my 60s. I couldn't see it at the time. And the biggest regret, or the biggest logical fallacy I had, was that I could only do and teach things that I was good at. I do not believe that at this age. I wish I had been an art teacher, and I certainly could have taught art at the junior high level without being very good at it. I could have mastered the basic skills that I had to teach to somebody else without having been a good artist. I don't know how I got that thought into my mind, but I never considered any kind of occupation that I might have really enjoyed where I didn't have a real mastery of whatever it was. And in every art situation I was ever in, whether it was a class or just a time in a class that we did art, there was always some little art whiz kid who could just like paint, draw circles around everybody else. And I always imagined that that was the kind of person it would take to teach art. So these artsy kids are the art equivalent of the kids at ice skating rinks. Have you ever been to an ice skating rink, or a roller rink for that matter? And there's some 3-year-old doing pirouettes in the middle of the ice skating rink, and you just go, I think I'll just turn my skates in and go home. I mean, as you're like 40 years old, hanging over the rail as you creep around, and this little toddler is out in the middle, like doing backflips in her skates. That was how I felt in art. So it never crossed my mind I could be an art teacher. And nobody ever told me, you don't have to be good at something. You have to be competent in it, but you don't have to actually be talented in it to be able to teach it, or even to do it. I mean, who would have stopped me, The world wouldn't have cared. So that was something I misunderstood about life. And partly because I wasn't even conscious that I thought that. So I couldn't dispute it in my own mind because I wasn't aware that I was operating from that assumption. The other regret I have is that I didn't live near the beach. And the way that one came about was, it's expensive to live near the beach. And I just thought to myself, without really examining it, we can't afford it, and we'll never be able to own a home that way. I realize now, I could have gotten within a few miles of the beach and gone up the sequence of home ownership more slowly and later, but who cares? I would have been able to go to the beach. I mean, I totally misjudged that. And part of the proof for that is that people who are dedicated to living near the beach do find a way. I mean, there are ways. You start out farther back and you move closer, or you start out in a smaller place and then you creep up to bigger and bigger places, or closer and bigger places. I completely just like, we can't afford it. And Steve was so concentrated on, getting his career off the ground, and he had, was 5 years behind, in a sense. Behind's not quite the right word, but because of being in the Air Force, he was older, and he really was just focused on, okay, I got to get my career going here. So he wasn't sensitive to that, and a lot of that was because I didn't articulate it. I just assumed it couldn't be done and never really said, look, let's really think about trying to do this, because it would mean that much to me. And his family lived inland was the other thing. But so I just let that one go by. I mean, and I look back now and think, what? I mean, how did I come to that conclusion? Did I ever look up one place within a 5-mile radius of the beach to see if there was any place we could have gone to? No, I just thought I knew. So that logical fallacy was to assume that my first general impression was the correct one, and not lift the lid and look at the details underneath, or take the position that says, I will do this, now the question is how, instead of, oh, I guess I can't do this. So, and again, I've had such a good life, but what I want my descendants to know is, don't give up on the stuff that's important to you, and try even just to be conscious of what you really want to do. Don't just assume things that might be fun or enjoyable or meaningful to you aren't doable. Look at it again and again and again before you give up. So I ask you, what regrets do you have in your life? And are you afraid of experiencing regret? Are you afraid to think about regret? Do you feel like apparently so many people feel, judging by the quotes on the internet, like it's best not to think about it, to look at it, and just move forward from here? Because I think my regrets are an important part of who I am, and a window into who I am, and are part of me, part of my life, and part of what I can give to the next generation. Thank you for listening to me. Bye.